You know, I never did beat this game, but I remember it fondly. Let's dive back in. The first thing you're presented with when you hit start game is a poem. A quiet, enigmatic cutscene, something that feels borrowed from old folklore. A shadowy figure searching for the so-called Twilight Dragon, two opposing forces, light and dark, colliding, fading, and then receding. What stood out to me wasn't the imagery so much as the structure. The first line and the last line repeat almost exactly. It gives the impression that whatever the story is here, it's already happened before, and maybe it'll happen again. Whatever that matters right now isn't clear. But it lingers. What's interesting is what comes next. The cutscene doesn't just set a tone, it quietly frames the entire experience. Because as soon as it ends, we're no longer watching a myth, we're creating an account. Not a character, an account. It becomes clear that this is likely what the protagonist is seeing as well. The same imagery, the same introduction, right before logging into the world. The World is the most popular, massive multiplayer online game in the universe of .hack. And in that way, it presents itself as a kind of box narrative, a story inside a story. You, the player, playing a game about a player playing a game. That idea feels familiar now, but in 2002, it was handled with an unusual amount of patience. There's a quiet confidence to how .hack opens. After your account is created, the game presents another layer, a browser. Emails, news articles, customization options. This is how the world of .hack imagines the near future. Not through exposition, but through interfaces. The game was released in 2002, but it's set in 2010. And instead of telling us what the future looks like, it lets us poke around in it. Reading the news fills in small details, how popular the world is, how the headset works, bits of everyday world building that feel incidental but deliberate. Your email box tells a similar story. Registration confirmations, server names, and then a message from a friend, Yasuhiko. And from the start, it's clear that Orca isn't just another NPC. He's someone that the protagonist knows. The person who convinced him, and effectively you, to sign up for this game in the first place. There's one more stop before logging in, the message boards. Here there are players talking, complaining, speculating, explaining mechanics to each other without realizing that they're also explaining them to you. It's clever and very understated. Something about the world already feels established. There's a phrase that fits this best, lived in. When people use that phrase, what they usually mean is that a space doesn't feel like it was created for you. It feels like it existed before you even arrived. The message boards aren't tutorials dressed up as lore, they're conversations already in progress. Players argue, they complain about balance, they speculate about events, they casually reference mechanics without explaining them. And in doing so, they teach you how the game works. Not directly, but incidentally. And that's what makes it feel lived in. You're not the center of attention. The world doesn't pause to introduce itself. It assumes you'll figure things out the same way everyone else did, by listening, observing, and by being present. And by the time that you finally log in, it already feels like you're late to something that's been going on for a while. When you first touch down in the marbleized concrete of the world, you aren't alone for long. Another player approaches. Turns out to be Yasuhiko, your friend. Now standing in front of you is his in-game avatar, Orca. He eases you in. Menus, basic movements, how to read the camera. And then there's the gate, the system that governs how the game moves you through itself. It's how you enter and exit the world and how you travel to its procedurally generated areas. Nothing is rushed, nothing is over-explained, and by the time you step into your first dungeon, combat has already been introduced. The rhythm of attacks makes sense, the camera feels familiar. It doesn't feel like a tutorial so much as it feels like two friends playing a game together. There's something worth noticing about Orca's design. On the surface, it's simple. A heavy frontline character, broad armor, and a large weapon. The kind of avatar you immediately read as dependable. That is intentional. In MMOs, especially early ones like these, characters like this filled a very specific role. They drew aggro, they anchor parties, they stand between new players and danger. And that's exactly who Orca is meant to be. To you. He's an in-game veteran, an IRL friend, the person who convinced you to log in the first place. His design communicates all of this before he even gets to speak. There's a term for what's happening here, a slightly more mechanical one, diegetic trust. What that means is that the game earns your trust through its systems, not its dialogue. You trust Orca because the game teaches you to. He takes hits for you. He explains mechanics without talking down to you. He moves ahead, then waits when you fall behind. Even the way he looks, solid, uncomplicated, almost plain, reinforces that role. Orca isn't flashy, he isn't mysterious, he isn't even optimized in a way that feels intimidating. He's built to be reliable, and that's why what happens next works as well as it does. When something goes wrong, it doesn't feel like a scripted twist, it feels like a violation. The rules you've just learned are broken. Orca's design sets expectations and then quietly pulls the rug out from under them. Now, take a moment to put yourself in our protagonist's shoes. A friend asks you to try a game with him. It's nothing serious, just something that he's been playing. You learn the basics, you start to get comfortable, you're figuring it out as you go. And then something happens. Something you don't understand, and maybe that's normal. Everything is unfamiliar. It is your first time after all. Still, something feels off. You've never heard your friend sound like this before. Concerned, focused, quiet in a way that doesn't feel performative. He's experienced though, so maybe this is just one of those in-game events people talk about in the message boards. A rare encounter, a scripted moment, right? Wrong. What follows doesn't feel like an event. It feels like a nightmare. You approach what looks like a player in trouble, a female character frozen in place, and then the environment begins to change, not dramatically, just in a way that feels wrong. Textures warp, the music distorts, and the space around you twists into something grotesque. You hesitate. Is this normal? Is this what boss encounters are supposed to feel like? Your hands shake as you watch Orca charge forward. He's attacking relentlessly, but nothing registers. No damage, no feedback, no response, and then, with a simple motion, almost casual, the monster strikes him down. Orca turns to you and says,
It wasn't supposed to be this way. I'm sorry. Get out of here!
His avatar collapses, unraveling right in front of you, and suddenly this thing now sets its sights on you. This is still a game, so why does your chest feel so tight? The monster begins charging the same attack. You try to move, but you can't. You try to react, but you don't. And for the first time since logging in, you feel something that doesn't belong in a game at all. Fear. Just before the attack lands, the screen goes dark. You're forcibly logged out. A crash maybe? An error? It's strange, but survivable. The next day you go to school and Yasuhiko isn't there. This is when you find out. Your dear friend is now in a coma. But you spoke to him yesterday. You played with him yesterday, so now there's only one question left. Could it be the game? This is what .hack does exceptionally well. It creates mystique almost preternaturally, not through spectacle or shock or constant escalation, but through restraint, through unanswered questions that feel personal rather than abstract. The game doesn't tell you to care, it gives you a reason to. What just happened isn't framed as a mission or a quest marker, it's a rupture. Something that shouldn't even be possible but clearly is. Because you were there for it, because you learned the game alongside your friend, the mystery isn't theoretical. It's intimate. The game quietly suggests that answers won't come from cutscenes or exposition. They'll come from digging, from reading message boards, from chasing rumors, from logging back in when common sense tells you not to. And that's where the intrigue really begins to take hold. If the game can hurt someone in the real world, then maybe it can help them too. Maybe whatever caused this can be understood, interrupted, reversed. .hack never promises that outright. It just lets the possibility hang there. Uncomfortable, unresolved, and impossible to ignore. And so the motivation to continue doesn't come from obligation, it comes from hope. A quiet, fragile belief that if you keep pulling at the thread, if you stay inside the world just a little bit longer, you might find a way to bring your friend back. Perplexed by what you've seen, you do the only thing that makes sense. You post on the message boards. You ask, carefully, if anyone else has experienced anything resembling coma-like symptoms while playing the world. Not long after this, a new email appears in your inbox. The text is corrupted, fragmented, unstable, but readable enough to piece together. The one who holds the book is looking for me. There is no time. Please, help me. The book she's referring to is an item that appeared when Orca's avatar fell apart. It doesn't behave like loot, it doesn't sit neatly in your inventory, it attached itself to you. Therefore, one could say your avatar is infected. What that means or what it's for isn't explained, or at least not yet. When Kite logs back into the world, he's immediately approached by another player, a woman, Black Rose. She comes in hot, abrasive, almost confrontational, and her design reflects that immediately. Heavy blade, aggressive stance, a look that reads capable but not comfortable. Black Rose presents herself like the tsundere archetype, defensive, sarcastic, quick to judge, but mechanically and narratively she's something else. She's there to help keep the story grounded. A companion who asks questions, who pushes forward, a stand-in for the questions the audience may have or the player base. Kite doesn't say much at first. This is his first real session after all, and that's when the game nudges you towards town. But when you return to the gate, Black Rose intercepts you again. She offers to join your party. She has interesting keywords to explore. This becomes your first companion. Following her keywords leads you to a cathedral, one she clearly recognizes. She hesitates here, and inside you're attacked by a goblin, and it's in this moment that you realize something. For all her confidence, for all of her teasing Kite for being new, Black Rose isn't especially experienced. She overextends, she panics, and when it's later revealed that her brother has fallen into a fate similar to Yasuhiko, the parallel clicks into place. Black Rose is what Kite would have become had Orca not been there. Same fear, same confusion, just alone. Deeper inside the cathedral, you encounter a statue. It looks disturbingly like the girl you tried to help earlier. Kite reads an inscription, names that seem harmless now but linger longer than they should, foreshadowing doing its quiet work. Then the doors burst open and a heavily armored figure storms in, and the contrast is immediate. This is Balmung. Broad, imposing armor, a design that communicates authority before anything else. He doesn't look like a player struggling to keep up. He looks like someone who belongs at the top. The game glitches and a massive monster manifests, wrong and unstable. Balmung cuts it down in a single strike, efficient and decisive, but the monster, its HP is completely unaffected, apparently infinite. Orca flashbacks begin to set in. Balmung tells you to leave, not unkindly but not negotiable either. It's the voice of someone used to being obeyed. Black Rose refuses. She throws herself at the monster, reckless and desperate, driven by a trauma that you don't yet understand. And then a voice cuts through the noise.
The book. Open the book.
The book?
The power it holds can bring forth either salvation or destruction at the whim of the user.
It's then that something activates. Your avatar changes. Runes carve themselves into your body. Your blue attire shifts to orange. This is when you are introduced to the Bracelet of Twilight. The power doesn't feel earned, it feels imposed, which is important. You use it and the monster's infection bursts into data. You then attain an item, a so-called virus core, which purpose isn't explained yet, but it will be in a matter of time. And suddenly you recognize the sensation. The animation of the cutscene gives it away. This is the same power that destroyed Orca. Balmung turns on you. He accuses you of being the source of the virus, and again his design reinforces his worldview. Order, rules, containment. If something doesn't fit, it must be removed. Black Rose steps in. She reminds him angrily that Kite was the only reason the monster could be defeated at all. Balmung leaves, displeased, unconvinced. Outside, Balmung is approached by that player who saved you earlier, the one that crashed your game before things could get out of hand, Helba. Her design is different, not imposing like Balmung, nor reactive like Black Rose. She looks out of place, like she belongs in a completely different game. And that's kind of the point. Helba identifies the knight as Balmung of the Azure Sky. Her calm familiarity with myth and mechanics suggests something unsettling. She isn't impressed by rank, she isn't threatened by his authority. She speaks like someone who understands the system well enough to bend it, or step outside of it entirely. It is at this beat that Kite makes his decision. He will use this power to save his friend, whatever it is, whatever it costs. And as such, the two log out for the day. Later, you check the message boards. There's new activity, but your post, it's gone, deleted. And now the mystery shifts. Not towards anything supernatural, but towards something administrative. Someone is hiding the truth, someone with access, someone who can rewrite what players are allowed to know. An email arrives. It's Helba. She explains the bracelet's power and gives it a name, Data Drain, a tool that can save and destroy at the whim of the user. By now, the questions are multiplying. What happened to Orca? What is this bracelet? Why can Helba see what others can't? Why does Balmung fear you? And why does Black Rose need answers so badly? It's worth stopping for a moment to talk about Kite's new design as well, because the game doesn't just give him power, it changes how he looks. Before this, Kite is almost entirely in a blue-green attire. Cool tones, soft edges, visually unobtrusive. He blends into the world the same way he blends into its systems. Present, but not imposing. After the bracelet activates, that changes. The blue gives way to this radiant orange. Blue and green traditionally read as passive, observant, reactive, a sort of audience color. Meanwhile, orange, by contrast, is active, volatile, difficult to ignore. It's the color of warning signs and emergency lights, something that demands attention. And suddenly, Kite isn't just in the story anymore, he's marked by it. The runes reinforce this. They aren't elegant or ceremonial, they're jagged and asymmetrical. They don't look like a blessing, they look like something etched into him without his consent, which fits because Kite did not earn this power. He did not seek it out. He doesn't even understand it. It all happens to him. The bracelet itself mirrors this instability. Its design is sharp, irregular, almost broken looking, and every time it's used, the cutscene reflects this. The camera shakes, the animation stutters. Kite's body moves in ways that don't feel intentional. He isn't wielding power, he's surviving it. It looks less like a special ability and more like a system overriding the player. This ties into something broader about Kite as a protagonist. At the start of the game, Kite is a passive character. By that, I mean someone who reacts to events rather than drives them forward. Things happen around Kite. He responds as best as he can. And there's nothing wrong with that. It mirrors how most players would approach a new game, cautiously and observant at first. The bracelet, however, short-circuits that process. It gives Kite something he likely wouldn't have achieved on his own, at least not yet. Not through grinding, and not through mastery, and not through experience. What the bracelet provides him is a sense of agency. Suddenly, Kite can change outcomes. He can affect systems that are meant to be immutable. And that transformation from blue to orange makes that shift visible. But the game is careful. This isn't framed as empowerment. It's framed as responsibility. The bracelet doesn't make Kite a hero, it makes him a variable. Something unpredictable, maybe even dangerous. A tool that can be used for salvation or destruction at the will of the user. And that's the quiet genius of the design. Kite doesn't become active because he wants to be. He becomes active because the world no longer allows him to remain passive. The bracelet did not just give him the power, it gave him a reason to act. We've reached the point in the narrative where Kite begins encountering characters who can become companions. We meet Mistral, a lucky treasure hunter who witnesses the bracelet in action and immediately decides that she wants it for herself. And then there's Pyros, heavy armor, oversized axe, bowl cut, fully committed to roleplay as if the world were sacred text. They're charming in their own ways, but none are introduced quite like her, a mysterious cat-like player, and her anxious ward, Elk. This is Mia. Before you ever meet Mia, you hear about her. Rumors, whispers on the boards, suggestions that her character model shouldn't even exist, that it must be the result of hacking. And from the moment she appears, that implication feels less like gossip and more like foreshadowing, because she does something impossible. She sees the bracelet. Not in combat, not during data drain, just standing there idle. The bracelet is supposed to be hidden. Its properties already established as something outside the scope of the world's systems. And yet, Mia can perceive it instantly. It's then you receive an email asking you to meet her at the bottom floor of a dungeon. But on your way down, you're intercepted by an administrator using the shopkeeper model from town. It warns you not to continue, that this area is infected. Earlier in the game, that would have been enough to send you running, but now you've faced infected monsters before. You've survived them. Augmented by the power of Twilight, you've been given the tools to navigate what others can't, so you ignore the warning. At the lowest floor, the infected monster is waiting. The fight is grueling, slower than usual. Eventually, you data drain it and gain another virus core. Mia and Elk are waiting, and she explains the virus cores work in tandem with the bracelet. They allow Kite to pass barriers that should not be passable, to move through corrupted space, and in effect, they let you hack the game. And from a design standpoint, this does a few things. On a practical level, it paces the narrative. At certain points, you'll need a specific virus core from a specific enemy type, which means exploring procedural areas, grinding and engaging with the dungeon loop. Some players see this as story stalling, and that criticism isn't unreasonable, but there's another way to read it. Narratively, each virus core pushes Kite further outside the boundaries of normal play. He's no longer just surviving anomalies, he's learning to navigate them. Each data drain nudges him closer to something Hellboy-like, someone who can move in and out of its system rather than simply existing in it, which makes Balmonk's earlier suspicion linger a little longer. If Kite can bypass walls, if he can dismantle corrupted entities, if he can ignore administrative warnings, at what point does he stop being a victim of the system and start becoming a threat to it? And then there's the cost. Every time you use data drain, a screen appears. Its infection is spreading. The virus inside Kite is growing. You don't know what that means yet, but the game makes sure that you notice. There's a quote by the historian John Dalberg Action: "An absolute power corrupts absolutely." It's usually cited in political contexts, but it fits here in a quieter way. The system of the world is hiding something. It deletes posts, it suppresses information, it denies that anything is wrong. If Kite wants answers, if he wants to save Yasuhiko, he can't work within that system. He has to supersede it, bypass it, break through it, override it. When you give someone the power to break the rules, what keeps them from breaking more than they're meant to? Each virus core pushes him further outside the structure. Each data drain makes him less like a player and more like an anomaly. At what point does the one chasing the corruption begin to mirror it? And that's when the words from the very beginning of the game begin to echo once more.
The power it holds can bring forth either salvation or destruction at the whim of the user.
Coaching you through the gate hacking process, Mia provides a keyword to a world with restricted access. You follow her instructions, you use virus cores, remove the barrier, and step into something profoundly corrupted. .hack always has this incredible way of simulating expanse, but here, the expanse feels diseased. You press forward, dungeon floors cleared, enemies drained, and at the end, there's no grand revelation, just another corrupted monster. You defeat it, and then something integral happens. Kite expresses his own hesitations, an implication that the bracelet was never meant for him. It was meant for Orca, for someone stronger, more experienced, more worthy. There's a concept in storytelling often referred to as the hero's journey. It was popularized by mythologist Joseph Campbell in his book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Campbell studied myth across cultures and noticed a pattern. The hero is called to adventure, resists it, doubts themselves, crosses a threshold, and slowly transforms through their trials. One of the most important stages isn't the victory, it's the doubt and what the character does when faced with that hesitation. It's the moment where the hero questions whether or not they are capable of carrying what's been handed to them. Without that stage, growth feels mechanical, but with it, his transformation begins to feel less like it was thrust upon him and begins to feel earned. Mia doesn't comfort him. She doesn't validate the regret. She shuts it down. She isn't interested in what should have been. She's interested in what Kite will do now. There's a famous French philosopher named Jean-Paul Sartre. You don't need to have read him to recognize some of his ideals because they show up a lot in modern storytelling. One of his central arguments was that existence precedes essence. It functions on the core belief that we are not defined by what we're given. We are defined by what we choose. We aren't born ready-made into a role, we grow into it. In stories, this matters more than we realize. Good character arcs aren't just about destinies being fulfilled. They're about decisions being made. The hero isn't the hero because he's given a fancy sword and swings it around. They become the hero when they decide to wield it. And that's what's happening here. Kite hesitates because he thinks the bracelet belongs to someone else, someone better. But Mia doesn't argue that premise. She sidesteps it. Whether it belonged to Orca is irrelevant. What matters is what Kite will do now. And that shift reframes the entire story. For up until this point, Kite has just been reacting to the corruptions, to the comas, to the system breaking, but here, the narrative nudges him forward. You don't become the protagonist because the the plot chooses you, you become the protagonist because you choose to act, and that's what makes this moment powerful. Not the dungeon or the virus cores, the decision. Mia isn't offering comfort, she's offering responsibility, and in doing so, she pushes Kite across the threshold from passive character to active one. This part of his story is complete. On the next login, Balmung approaches. He wants intel on Orca. You gather that they were acquainted in some way, but after hearing what happened, he warns you again that the bracelet is dangerous. But as soon as he leaves, something curious happens. Helba appears. This is the second time that they've been staged in sequence. Sort of a yin-yang, order and anomaly, concrete rule and total disregard for it. And you start to wonder just how separate these concepts really are. Helba then introduces herself properly. She warns you about an administrator named Leos. To him, Kite and the bracelet are a virus, a vagrant entity to be deleted. She hands you a virus core. When asked why she's helping you, her answer affirms the thesis from the earlier segment. It's you that's pushing the story forward, not Helba. For all its corruptions and secrets, the world is still an MMO, and that means people. Through the message boards, you're given leads, rumors, and small frustrations posted into the ether. Following these threads leads you to new companions, the first of which is named Natsume. You find her in a dungeon lamenting her inability to secure a rare item. If you clear the challenges and retrieve the item for her, she generously offers to join your party. The second is Sanjuro, frustrated by his inability to obtain a rare blade. If you dive into a dungeon, retrieve the sword and bring it to him, he will offer his thanks, partnership, and additional information. The third is Stranger Still, a fan club devoted to an enigmatic long-arm player, Gardenia. She prefers solitude, but they refuse to leave her alone. After you track her down and agree to disband her admirers, she'll join you as well, not because of your combat prowess, but because you respected her boundaries. And that's something easy to overlook about the characters in .hack. They're odd, earnest, dramatic, and a little ridiculous at times, but that's important because without them, .hack would risk suffocating under its own tension. Between comas, corrupted zones, administrative conspiracies, and existential doubt, the narrative can get heavy at times. These companions provide levity, not in a meta wink at the camera kind of way, but in a human way. And that grounded absurdity balances the darker undercurrent of the plot and reminds you that this is still a game. You don't just recruit companions, you maintain relationships. And if you respond thoughtfully, you deepen rapport. Favor increases, and with it, new scenarios open up. And practically speaking, you need them. .hack teaches you early on that solo runs are a bad idea. The game thrives with a party of 3, and while other RPGs may refine party systems more elegantly, there's something satisfying about assembling a team whose strengths compensate for your weaknesses, especially when enemies become damage sponges and coordination matters far more than brute force. But the boards don't just provide quirky companions for you. They begin pushing the engine towards something larger, toward the end game. Among the usual chatter, critical threads start surfacing. Rumors of a test server that resulted in the deaths of its participants. Reports of increasingly corrupted or barred off areas. Discussion of new laws being passed. Legislation born from a prior event where hackers allegedly used VR headsets to induce harm. An incident referred to as the Deadly Flash. And then something stranger. Sightings of a woman in white playing tag with a large being wielding a red wand. Black Rose notices this too. You chase this lead down, but something feels wrong. Not in the usual way that things feel wrong. Black Rose remarks on it too, saying that it was far too easy to gain access to this place. There was no lock gate, no barrier, it was just open, and that's not how these restricted levels behave. You clear the dungeon and find nothing, and then Black Rose catches it. The keywords, they must have been wrong or altered. She eventually tracks down the actual lead. You follow it, and what you find is deeply unsettling. In the center of nothingness sits a bedroom. What you can only assume is a little girl's bedroom. A bed, dozens of stuffed bears, some with stitched, distressed expressions. The void stretches in every direction beyond it, and then a voice begins to speak. The girl in question, whose room this belongs to, is given a name. Aubrey. This must be that girl that we saw running from that entity, but the way the voice describes her, it doesn't sound like it's referring to a player. It speaks of her as something placed at the center of faith, something entrusted. It speaks of a day where her journey ends and promises eternal mourning. This feels heavy. Users on the boards are beginning to distrust Ultimate. the developers. There are too many glitches, too many inconsistencies, and yet, officially, everything is fine. And then the news tab catches your eye. Reports of coma cases. Public ones. Journalism. This isn't something Ultimate can quietly delete. And almost in step, the boards light up again. A new missing player. His disappearance is being actively discussed. Now, at the same time this is occurring, another thread pulls taut. A player named Bob calls out to Orca, asking to meet. Feeling obligated, Kite meets up with Bob, and he explains what happened. Bob mentions a level Orca once spoke of. There you encounter Linda, another of Orca's acquaintances. She confirms it outright. There is a conspiracy. Ultimate is hiding something. She suspects that they're using this game for some larger purpose. What that purpose is unclear, and that is frightening. She gives you a keyword for the Delta server. You hack the gate. Another room. It's similar in vibe to Aura's, but the differences are haunting. It is a white void with massive holes carved into the ground. What looks to be a rocking chair split apart by some invisible force. It looks like something was extracted here, gouged out. You leave with no answers, only implications. Black Rose, she contacts the original poster about Alfie and finds another lead. At the core of this dungeon, you find a player speaking with none other than Leos, the administrator who sees you as a virus. He senses your arrival and gates out immediately, but the player remains. Her name is Meg. She confirms that she posted about Alfie. She admits she shared the keywords, but now she's afraid and she gates out. Why did she run? You rush back to the boards and the post, it's gone. Again, deleted. Leos got there first. And then it happens. You receive what are probably the two most important emails in the entire game. The first is from Aura. It's corrupted again, fractured, repeating itself like a skipping record. But if you piece all of the characters together, the message becomes clear. I can't run anymore. If Skaith captures me, there's still time. There's still time. There's still time. Skaith. The name was mentioned before in the cathedral, the red-wanded entity. If Aura is real, whatever real means in this space, then saving her might bring you one step closer to understanding what happened to Yasuhiko. It's time. You're not chasing rumors anymore. You are confronting the source.
Where are you going without...
Bastard that got Yasuhiko. It might be there.
So you're gonna defeat it?
I don't know if I'm strong enough to do it.
You have to. I'm going with you. Don't even try to stop me.
The second email is from Helba. She's managed to recover the message that Leos deleted, and from it, you discover the final area that you're meant to visit. At the gate, Black Rose is waiting for you. Changed. No longer the uncertain player that you first met. She tells you that she's with you until the end, and together, you hack the gate and descend into the dungeon. And when you reach the core, you realize you're too late. Aura calls out to you, and in a motion that feels all too familiar, Skaith disintegrates her with Data Train, another friend you couldn't save. It ends here. The screen shifts, text crawls across it. Phase 1, Skaith, the terror of death. Good boss fights often serve as a kind of final exam. They incorporate lessons from everything that came before. It's a way for the game to ask the player whether or not they were paying attention, and Skaith is exactly that. His HP appears infinite. Attacks seem to do nothing, but if you pressure him long enough, the opportunity appears. Data Drain. When it lands, Skaith collapses into a more vulnerable form. Faster, more evasive, but no longer invincible. But Skaith isn't passive. His scythe hits hard. His magic interrupts combos and scatters your party. He can even data drain you, inflicting status ailments and heavy damage. Then there's Judgment, a guaranteed strike that can end a character instantly if you're not careful. It's a brutal fight, but with preparation, persistence, and maybe a little luck, you finally manage to bring him down. Skaith collapses into dust, and for a moment the battlefield goes quiet. You did it. But just then, the sky opens, and from the ashes of Skaith's defeat, something far worse appears. A floating monstrosity, amorphous, enormous, and impossible to understand. And before you can even react, it unleashes a blast that sends you flying across the map. You're completely helpless, and just before it can finish the job, Helba appears once again. She calls the creature by name, Kubia, and just as quickly as she's arrived, she disappears, leaving you with the realization that Skaith may have only just been the beginning. And with that, the screen fades. Part 1 officially ends. And honestly, what a ride. But it leaves me with more questions than answers. What is Ultimate really doing with the world? Who or what is Kubia? What game is Helma actually playing at, and where do we fit into it? All of that I'm hoping to learn as we move into the next entry of the series, Dot Hack Part 2, Mutation. Because if the first chapter taught us anything, it's that whatever is happening inside the world is much bigger than one player, and we've only just logged in. See you on the other side. Later.